All right, we're now recording, and then you can see attendees are starting to come in.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. We'll give one more minute. We just got the webinar up live, and the link should be good to go. We'll start in 60 seconds. Okay, well, good evening and welcome to this first community conversation on the topic of school start times. And as the Zoom invitation hopefully spelled out a little bit, this is the first of what will be many conversation on this topic. We're really truly just kicking things off tonight. Have a very short presentation on some of the background, where we've been, and maybe some next steps. But the main purpose of tonight is to provide an opportunity for people to share thoughts, comments, and questions on the topic of school start times. And of course, school start times is typically related to having the school start times of older students be later. And we'll get into that in a little bit. So again, we're going to present a very short deck of slides, and then we'll open things up to questions. As you see, I have with me tonight a subset of the district leadership team, and we'll be prepared to answer questions if we can. This will be interactive and also an opportunity for us to take notes and then populate our new district webpage on this topic with a Q&A type living document. So it'll be a little bit of both. First, the presentation. Okay, somebody tell me that they can see that okay. We're good? All right, phew. Rest easy now. So this is community conversation number one. We are not breaking this so far into any sort of distinction between school level, grade levels, secondary, elementary. It's not like that. It's truly a community conversation, and it starts tonight. We'll have about an hour tonight. And as I mentioned, there'll be plenty more opportunities for input and conversation. So tonight's agenda, we'll provide a little bit of background information. By the way, there is loads and loads of information on this topic available out there. So what we present tonight is just the very, very tip of the iceberg. We will certainly provide links and other documents on our webpage, but it really wouldn't take anyone too long to dig out any sort of research on this topic, both be that sleeping habits or the pros and cons, etc. We will share similarly some generic pros and cons of this topic. Please know that tonight is really almost nothing Wissahickon specific. That is, we haven't crafted any scenarios where we can run by you this amount of time or that busing outcome or have you. This is generically the pros and cons that districts uncover as they go through this conversation and this process. And then the last part of this presentation before we get to the Q&A will be next steps. So the first thing is the background. We've had over the last 4 years, really, maybe even close to 5, lots of conversation on this in a very informal way at board meetings and home and school association meetings. We've had students come present to us at the board level, which has been awesome. We have some staff members chime in, And actually, it became so prevalent or so important that the Board of School Directors formally adopted this goal. So this is a 2-year goal. This is being year 1. I won't read it to you there, but you can see that it's actually formalizing this process, or at least the goal behind this process, which is at the start of not this coming September, but the following September, so the 2023-24 school year, look to do something with possibly changing and implementing new start times. So this is a 2-year official district goal that the Board of Directors formally voted on and adopted, in this case back in October, and again, it will be for a full 2 school years. So we're really just starting what will be probably about an 18-month conversation, because what we've learned from other districts that have done this is it takes that long. There's a lot of layers to this onion to unravel. So one of the premises tonight is that the science behind this really isn't the issue. Okay. It's clear that adolescents have a time clock that can be better served by later school start times. Again, we're speaking primarily of older students now, primarily, but it also goes a little bit to younger students. The issue that all districts struggle with is the feasibility of this. So is there a level of community interest once we go through all of the pros and all of the cons, and then once we craft some sort of district specific set of solutions to choose from, and we will absolutely eventually have to get to Wissahickon specific solutions. And then we have to decide if there's the level of community interest given the feasibility of it. Not so much debating the science, but really, is it something that will work for us here? So again, this is the main point. And there are numerous scientific studies, really well done, corroborated that, and again, we're speaking of adolescents here, so maybe staying teenager-ish. The ideal number of hours is 8.5 to 9.5 hours. And their start time for school is around 8:30. That's the ideal. And the note there says that there's some research in elementary students, but it's not quite as conclusive, and it's also not as ubiquitous as the research for the adolescents. So what follows here is just a simple list of some generic pros, arguments in favor of later school start times. Okay, we already spoke of the fact that there's just multiple medical experts and associations that are lobbying for this. These are a number of the things that they have observed. You'll note as you read these, and by the way, we'll post this entire presentation on our new webpage. The webpage will have a button for people, interested parties, to submit questions and comments. And this will be where all the materials are stored, research links, etc. These, you'll note, are very important. I mean, here we are in the middle. These were all, by the way, developed before a pandemic. So when that second to last one speaks of mental and physical health, I mean, that's almost highlighted now in the middle of this pandemic. However, these pros focus on health, primarily mental, but also physical. It's interesting to note that the literature is mixed in terms of the impact on student achievement. So there, just like anything else, there will be studies that show X, and there are studies that refute X and all that. Generally speaking, these are the general pros of later school start times. Medical experts recommend it. Lots of good benefits for mental health, and maybe mixed in terms of student achievement, but maybe it's time for us to pay attention to mental health and physical health, especially coming out of the pandemic. So similarly, this is going to be kind of a generic list of the cons, the arguments against making school times start later. Not going to read all these. These are the type of things that districts that have done this, and there are some in the area, kind of have to address each one of these one by one and come up with solutions. That top one cannot be minimized. The transportation and logistical challenges are very, very real, not just in terms of practically being able to do it, depending on where your streets are and how close your schools are and all that kind of thing. Again, it's district specific, but also it's a financial hit. And then there are all these other ones. That bottom one is particularly acute, or particular to us. Our Northmont Technical Career Center students will have to be accommodated. There's no way I'm leaving them off the table. There's no way I'm not going to provide for them, but we just have to get creative if we want to pursue this and overcome that and these other hurdles on there. And they're very real. Parent work schedules, childcare, students' jobs for when they're older. All of these are things that districts, and sometimes districts look at all these, try to solve them and can't, and therefore don't adopt later school start times. And then sometimes they look at these, come up with solutions that work for their community, and they do adopt. It just depends. So our next steps, we're going to consider administering this sleep study. Now, actually, we were about ready to administer this thing. This study looks at things like sleep patterns, time management, when students do homework, when they go to bed, when they wake up, all that kind of thing. And this is conducted by the Montgomery County Office of Public Health. And we were ready to do it, and then the pandemic hit, and as you might imagine, the Office of Public Health does not have any capacity right now to do surveys like this. So we might do it ourselves, or we might just, as we think about things, just stipulate that our older students aren't getting enough sleep. They're getting up too early, and they maybe, if we can swing it, the later school start times will work. So anyway, this is on there as a consideration. We will hold a forum, probably more than one, for staff to share their ideas, questions, and concerns. So while these school start times obviously affect the community and affect families in the community, they most definitely affect our staff members who may have to get to work at a different time, which in a ripple effect impacts their own children, their spouse, their home life. So this is not just as simple as it might seem on the surface. We will be creating very soon a steering committee of students and staff and community members. We'll have a button on our website for interested people to submit to us their interest. And this will be one of those things where there'll be a large number of people on it. We don't know the number yet, but help us delve into all of those district specific challenges that were listed there. And help us hash through things like what's the impact on sports? And really more importantly, what's the impact on student athletes? So that can be one little subcommittee. And what's the transportation? And what's the impact on childcare at elementary level, daycare, all that kind of thing. So we will have a steering committee. It doesn't exist yet. We haven't made any call for volunteers yet. We will get that word out to everyone if you are interested. I mentioned our new dedicated webpage. It's right there. We'll send this out with additional information, and it will make this available as well. It will have what will be a running Q&A section. We'll try to divvy up the questions and answers as best we can. In each of these community conversations, including tonight, we'll try to answer some. We may have to go out and get the answers somewhere else. But in any event, this is where all the information can be found. And then we'll have number 2, community conversation number 2, sometime in March, we're thinking. And then there will be more than that. Remember, there will be no changes for the 22-23 school year. There's no way we can get things together by that. So these community conversations have to ebb and flow with how questions have been submitted, what the answers are, what kind of progress we've made on clearing the hurdles. And so there will be more of these conversations. The next one is in March via Zoom, but again, please don't get the misimpression. There's only going to be a couple of these. There'll be more. So that's it. That's the presentation. As I mentioned, it was short. And so now we have people on the panel here far more skilled than I am in technology matters and Zoom to help facilitate a Q&A or just a public comment section. Again, we'll try to transcribe as much of this as we can. This entire presentation, the Zoom is being recorded, and a link will be posted on our website for those who couldn't make it or those who want to go back and check out what was said or heard. So on that note, I don't know, Dr. Dewan, I'm going to lean on you, I think, to figure out next steps on the Q&A part.
Yes, there is the raise hand feature here on Zoom. So if you select the raise hand feature, we will see that your hand is raised and we'll bring you into the panel to ask your question. So we'll just pause here to see. We do have Kate Clinton.
Before we go, Dr. Dewan, let me just, the people who are here on the panel who will help with questions tonight aren't the only ones who will be involved in this process. These are just the ones I could find that were available tonight and nice enough to join us. So by way of introduction, on my screen, top right, we have Dr. Lynn Blair, who is the principal of the high school. We have Katie Meyer, who is the board and administration coordinator. Wade Coleman, who is our business administrator. Wenyewe Dewan, who is our assistant superintendent, and Danielle Hay, who is the human resources director. So because this touches on so many different pieces of a district's operation, the faces you see here tonight and their roles are only just a subset of everyone we're going to need on board here. But this is who we have tonight. So Dr. Dewan, take it away, please.
We'll invite Kate Clinton.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I just have a kindergarten right now, so I don't really know the start times of elementary, middle school, and high school to begin with. Well, I know elementary, but, and how far apart do you guys need the times to be in order for this to be potentially to work?
Okay, good question. I'll start us off with the answer to that last question. Kate, it kind of depends on which solution we would go with. Some districts have 3 different starting times, basically middle and then elementary and high school or some like that. Right now, as you may know, we have 2 essentially. For the most part, we have a secondary bus run and then the elementaries. So I don't really know how long they'd have to be apart for our busing to work. The good news for us is our middle school and our high school are right across the street. Actually, that's bad news when it comes to traffic and arrival and dismissal, but it's good news in terms of efficiency. So that's a perfect example of a district-specific solution that we'll definitely share out. Does anyone on the panel have thoughts about that? Wade, do you have any busing?
Yeah,
thoughts?
I did a quick conversation with transportation today, and I think you hit it right on the head. It does depend on the scenarios. There are certain things that we do where the turnaround is almost or about 30 minutes. So that would be about the minimum that it could be. But if we are doing doubles, like you mentioned, two schools at a time, it's probably a little bit more than the 30.
All right, I don't see any other attendees with hands raised at this time. Oh, there we go. Kara Finn.
Hi, I just have a quick question. Are you considering only swapping times of elementary versus middle and high school, or are you considering pushing everything back by like a half hour or an hour?
Okay, good question. Districts have done both. If you swap, that's otherwise known as flipping. And so the younger students would go first, and then on average, older students later. Or you can just slide everybody later as they are now. Pros and cons to both. So the answer is we're not considering either one necessarily, or I should say more accurately, we would, as we go down this road, we'll consider both and see which one, if either, works for us the best.
Okay, next question is from Ron Stoloff. There we go. Ron, you can unmute.
Hi there. Nice to see what we've been beating our heads against the wall for all these years coming to some sort of fruition. A question I have about is the busing we provide for students outside of our district, such as the private and parochial schools. What will happen to the scheduling for those rides? Do they have to dance to our tune, or do we have to dance to theirs? Thank you.
That one's all yours, Wade.
So my answer is not, I'm not going to answer it exactly the way you asked it, but I don't know the have to. I am pretty positive we would want to try to dance to their tune, to use your words. So I think we would try to craft a solution whereby we are able to accommodate the non-public bell schedules to whatever extent that we can.
I see Ron's hand is still raised. I'll bring him back in. Maybe he has another question. Ron? You can go ahead. And...
No, that was just the one.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
All right. No other hands are raised at this time. If you just joined us at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a raise hand feature. So you're welcome to select that, and we'll see that your hand is raised. We'll invite you in to talk and ask your question to the panelists. Okay, Tony, let's see. All right, Tony, you can unmute.
Oh, I just unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to check if there any impact on the after-school activities.
Okay, very good question. The answer, Tony, is yes. What the impact is unclear, and it kind of gets to Kara's question about whether we flip and have the younger students go first, how much later we go for the older students. I'm actually going to, Dr. Blair, if you don't mind talking a little bit about the current arrangement for after school activities, in this case, interscholastic athletic, and how our student athletes deal with things now, and then maybe we can springboard off of that.
Sure. So right now, on average, we have 3 seasons, fall, winter, spring. On average, if you look at all the teams across those 3 seasons, they have about 18 games. So 9 on average are home, 9 are away. Again, that's average. That's not for every single team, but so for right now, for the home games, it's never an issue because they start at junior varsity usually starts at 3:30 and varsity starts at 5. So if our kids are finished at 2:35, they get ready after the bell rings and they're fine to be on the field at 3:30. For our away games, they currently leave at 1:30, plus or minus. So they're missing about an hour of instructional time. So that's like 9 hours over the course of the season. So if, for example, we delayed school and it ended at 3:30, they would still have to leave at 1:30 because we have to follow Suburban 1 league time. So they would miss 2 hours of school on average for 9 games. So we're looking at like double the amount of time, like 18 hours of instruction per season.
And so that's the example of interscholastic athletics.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something that we do here ourselves, such as intramurals,
Yeah,
or clubs or something.
yeah. So our clubs just meet with their advisors after school ends. So that would just be based on whenever the school day would end, the club would go beyond that.
Right. One of the considerations that communities have to think about are the after school work opportunities for older students, because obviously if school's later, they get to work later. And sometimes that's seen as a large hurdle. Sometimes it's seen as just something that can be accommodated. It kind of depends.
Okay, I see Claudine.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment because I have been following a lot of the districts in this county and surrounding counties regarding the subject. And a lot of them, if they're pushing back and throughout the country, if they push back an hour, it typically doesn't push back the whole school day an hour. So when you're just talking about pushing back to 3:30 and having kids miss a lot of athletics, typically they can find room in the schedule that the schools can, so that it only maybe goes back a half an hour. I think that typically happened like in Radnor and some other schools. And then in addition, there's a lot of schools in the county. Can you comment on the other schools that we may be participating against in sports that would also be looking at this, and therefore some of the times may change for sporting events?
Certainly, Claudia, thank you. First of all, we may recruit you with all this knowledge you have about how other districts are doing it, and turning an hour into 30 minutes sounds pretty good. So please make sure you make your availability known for our steering committee. A. B, the other part of your question, the second part was.
I think I can probably answer the second part of
Okay,
her question.
Yeah.
So right now, I know, Claudine, there are a lot of other schools in our area, in our Suburban One League, that are having these same kind of conversations. But again, a lot of people are in the same level of just starting to have the conversations. But right now, the league determines the time for the game. So it doesn't really matter if we play one school that necessarily has a different start time. Right now, Suburban One League is 3:30 and 5. Now that could change if a large majority of the schools in the whole league change, but that's not really something that's negotiated between the two schools that are competing.
There's also an interesting angle to this, which is in Montgomery County, I know there are conversations being had, but I would say that Radnor is usually called out as the one district that has gone into this the most and had the biggest change. They're not in our county. We rarely do compete against them. When schools get together for some reason, like in a athletic league or in a technical career center zone, what other districts do does actually come into play, and it will be a hurdle for districts to deal with things that when there's other schools involved, such as not so much athletics, but tech school. Again, not insurmountable, but a challenge.
Okay, no other hands are raised at this time. Oh, Lucy, let's see. Bring Lucy in to talk. Go ahead and unmute, Lucy.
Hi, I'm really sorry. We're new to the Wissahickon family. Why are we discussing changing school times? What brought that up? I must have missed something.
Sure. Actually, the conversation, as I was saying, started as in our records on an official board level back in 2017. Whether it's some individual students bringing up the topic, or actually board members got interested in the topic, and the national conversation about it. All three of those things combined to have the question be asked here: should we consider it? And so, I mean, it actually, in terms of why it's happening now, it became an official board goal in October. I didn't get my act together until now to put all this team together and get this conversation going. I probably should have done it earlier, but there's been a few things around that's distracting us. So the now has nothing to do with, frankly, at all, the pandemic. It has to do with the culmination of these conversations at the board level.
Okay, we'll invite Brenda to talk. Brenda, you can unmute.
Hi, would this ever be considered an option for special ed students if the district doesn't go toward it?
I'm not sure the answer to that one. Renda, we could look into that. I don't know if there's been a public school district like ours that has done that, but maybe, in which case the answer is we certainly could throw it on the pile of things to consider.
We'll invite Claire to talk. Claire, you can unmute.
Thank you. I know it's early days, so you may not have delved into this yet, but what are the ramifications on, AP courses, AP testing, anything that sort of is divergent from a typical maybe scheduling protocol for the older kids? Has that been talked about or looked at yet?
Not yet. No, that would be kind of maybe 2 layers below. I will say though that you raising a good point where any changes that we make, we want to try to identify all possible impact areas in this case AP opportunities for students, and make absolutely sure we don't negatively impact anything. That's the last thing we want to do, is make change all of a sudden find out that X, Y, and Z are not as robust or not as successful as they have been. So I like the idea of adding AP to the list of things we have. There's special education, as we previously spoke of. There's a number of sort of areas that we will be sure we scrub before we go forward with any change.
Jim, I can also add in, we think we've done just a small amount of digging at the high school about this, and College Board does require that all AP tests, the AM one starts at 8 on the East Coast and the PM one starts at 12. So we think that districts that do this on AP days, the kids have to come in early. Like if school didn't start by 8, they would have to come in by 8 for the test.
Okay, we have a few more hands raised. Just as a note, once you have asked your question or shared your comment, you're going to want to lower your hand. If your hand remains raised, we'll think you have another question or comment, which is fine. So if your hand is still raised, go ahead and lower it unless you have something else you want to come forth with.
So I see Lucy just lowered her hand, so
Yes.
I was neglected. I resent myself for not saying welcome to the district, Lucy. If you're that new, we welcome you and your family.
All right, we'll invite Ginger. Ginger, you can unmute.
Oh, hi, I'm actually Ginger's husband, Jeff.
Okay.
You touched on this, but I'd like to follow up a little bit. I mean, when I was in college, if I had a late class, I would just sleep in some more. Is there any published evidence that starting school later will actually lead to the health benefits you talked about?
Yes, there's published evidence from studies that have ranged this country, other countries. I can't cite them off the top of my head. I can say that there's actually a large number of pretty reliable research papers and studies. We'll post what we have on the website, but frankly, a 2-second Google search and you'll be going down rabbit holes all over the place about these studies.
We'll invite Lehman or Lyman. I want to make sure I'm saying your name correctly. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, I joined the meeting late. May someone help repeat what is the proposal for the later school start time, please?
Sure. Yes, we discussed earlier that at this time there's no proposal whatsoever on the table. This tonight is just an opportunity for us to kick off the conversation, share some very surface level generic pros and cons, and then lay out how we'll continue this conversation over the next probably 18 months. So at this time, we don't have any specific proposals. When they get developed, we'll certainly share them out, and there'll be opportunities like this to get feedback.
For those of you who have just joined us, we started this evening's event with a presentation. Dr. Crisfield walked through several points, and this presentation was recorded, and it will be available on our website, so you can look forward to viewing that at a later time. We'll welcome Michael. Michael, go ahead and unmute.
Oh, yes. I just joined and I missed a presentation, but and my question was just answered a previous person, but I guess turn it into a comment. There are studies out there because I had another WIS student that graduated 8 years ago that always was begging me for school to start later. And she, of course, cited those studies to me. But of course, she was never vocal enough at school to show you guys. She's more of a bookworm. But there is studies out there, and I'm all for it. My schedule changes with my child. I think what's best for the child is best for me. So my question also was, what time we're going to start, that sort of thing. But I'm all for it because I know it's better for the kids. I've seen the published studies 8 years ago. I'm sure there's even more now. My question is there any, with you guys being in the field, is there any schools that we know that did this, that any other pros came up or any other cons that came up? Because you could always plan for something, but after implementing it, of course, there's always unintended consequences. So do we know of any school district locally or nationally that did this and it worked out well or didn't work out well and it went back?
Yes, thank you, Michael. The answer is we do. And one of the charges of the committee will be to examine those case studies, if you will. We mentioned that Radnor is the most popular one, but there are others in the area. And I think we should probably stay with our kind of like maybe our state or our region. Doing something in the southwest of the country might have different considerations. I don't know, but there are definitely some in our area. And one of the keys, one of the things that I'm appreciative of in our county and our region is all the superintendents are very, very quick to share lessons learned on things. And principals I know have a similar kind of network. So we will absolutely be able to confer with the districts that have done this, find out the hurdles, find out their creative solutions, see if they work here, and kind of work through it that way.
Okay, Claire, I see your hand is still up. So did you have another question? You can unmute.
Thank you. It's more that I forgot to say this other piece earlier. So along with thinking about AP, the other thing that comes to my mind, although caveat, I have a second grader, so I have no idea how prevalent this is in the district because we were new to the district last year. But if you do have high school students in decent numbers that are either doing co or dual enrollment with colleges, I would also think that's an area just to put on your list to look into. Because if the day shifts back and the periods at the end of the day that they might normally miss for such a program, or conversely the morning shift and the college schedules kind of stay as they are on traditional campuses, that could be something to look at. Again, I have no idea if that program's popular in this district or not, but it's something I used to be involved with in another district.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. We'll definitely put that on the list of things to make sure we don't adversely impact if we were to make any changes. Yeah, good point.
Okay, we'll welcome Eric. Eric, you can unmute.
Thank you. I understand that this is very early in the process, but has the district had a chance to sit down and set any specific goals of what they would want to see for the outcome with this possible time change?
Thank you for that comment, Eric. The answer is no, not yet. What I'd like to do is create that steering committee and have those goals and desired outcomes determined by a wide swatch of stakeholders, students and staff and parents, community members.
Okay, we'll invite Shannon. You can unmute.
Hi, yes, thank you. I just wanted some clarification. Could you speak to the idea that you talked about earlier about, I don't know if you called it swapping or switching, where the elementary, are you thinking of making elementary start earlier or just having the middle and the high school follow their already set time?
Thank you, Shannon. The answer is neither and both. What we're doing right now is we're actually just gathering all the options that are out there that other districts have considered and in some cases implemented. And some have done the flipping of times and some have just shifted everybody later. So it's a little bit of both. And we're not considering either one and we're not eliminating either one. We're just kind of starting the conversation.
Okay, we'll invite Susan. Oops. Susan, go ahead, you can unmute.
Okay. I'm just concerned that my daughter, and I'm sure all the other high schoolers, have to get up at like 5:30 in the morning to get ready for school, and then the bus picks them up at 10 of 7. I just feel it's way too early, and then she's up late doing her homework for high school and stuff, and it just feels like there's no side that they can adequately get enough sleep or to prepare or to get all their assignments done on time as well.
Thank you for that comment, Susan. And I think you've identified one of the main reasons why districts have these conversations. Absolutely.
Okay, we'll welcome Claudine.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment back to Michael. He had asked about other schools, and there is a regional adolescent sleep needs coalition that was started a couple years ago. I did start to attend, and then I know Ronnie from the board and Ron from the board were attending as well. And I think that, that coalition has all schools from the area in it that are sharing, the ones that have gone through it and have come up with, a lot of the same concerns everyone's voicing here today, and have gone through it and, pushed the schools back successfully. So just wanted to bring that to the attention of everyone on the call. I will send a link to that to put on the website if you would like. But there is a lot of information out there to support this change.
Thank you. Yes, that's absolutely correct. And we have the link, but if you would resend it for us, that would be awesome. Thank you, Claudia.
We'll welcome Carrie. Carrie, you can unmute.
Hi, I have a comment and a question. The comment is for the kids with autoimmune diseases, like my daughter. Having the extra sleep at night, sleeping in later, will actually make them attend school more because they'll be missing less for flares and whatnot, and it's easier for them to get moving in the morning later. And then the other question I have is the Career Center. Have any of the other schools that send students there moved to a later start time? And if so, is there a possibility that the school itself then could adjust the Career Center could adjust their times?
Thank you, Carrie. The answer is, to my knowledge, I'm sure that none of our sister districts in the Northmont Tech Center have this. They may be having conversations. I don't know. We haven't gotten that far into it. Yes, a possibility would be for that tech schools to change their hours. I'm sure there's a whole host of layers to that onion with regard and based on the nature of their operation there. But it's not out of the question. And sort of like we discussed with either the Suburban One League or the consortium, as districts as more and more districts have these conversations and feel like they might want to make some moves, then there will be, I would say, probably more opportunities for collaboration.
Okay, we'll welcome MB. Go ahead, you can unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So actually mine's a good follow-up to the comment that question that was just made. My son's a freshman and looking to go to Northmont for the tech school. And so I don't know the start time of the morning session, but I was just curious of how that would play a part if the high school pushes back their start time.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, MB, for that. We don't have any details on that, but I will assure everyone who's listening here that there's no way I'm going to compromise our students' opportunities at Northmont. That is absolutely one of our treasured opportunities. And whatever happens here, there's no way I will stand for their opportunities being shortchanged or compromised as a result.
Welcome Claudine back. Welcome back, Claudine. You can go ahead and unmute.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't lower my hand. Sorry.
Angela, you can go ahead and unmute.
Hello, thank you so much. This has been a really good conversation and I'm glad that we're discussing it. But just for my clarity, on the table options, are we talking about a later start time and then a later end time, or a later start time and the same end time? Because if that is the case, I would opt to have a later start time with the same end time. That way we would avoid the disruption for all after school and extracurricular activities.
Thanks, Angela. Great question. We've just all, I guess, at least I have assumed that it's the same amount of school hours, just adjusted in some fashion. So I don't think there will be consideration of shortening the school day. That has a whole host of things, labor related, and the state requires a certain number of hours, and there's just lots of different reasons for that. But I suppose we could see if other districts have gone down that route.
We'll welcome Alexis.
Hi, I have a quick question trying to follow the conversation on Northmont Tech. I don't entirely understand how the schedule works between them and our high school. Like if our schedule changes, does that imply anything about them, or could students just attend there at the same normal hours they do currently and then go to the high school before or after? How does it fit together?
Good question. The answer is it kind of depends. If they are full-time at Northmont, then there wouldn't be too much impact other than we'd have an added busing challenge, which Mr. Coleman loves anyway, so that's okay. If there's shared time, then the complications arise, because then our start and end times impact their experience there. So it just kind of depends on which program and kind of how old the students are there. So it's hard to answer that question fully, but and what makes, I mean, you want to, like a 3D chessboard is the North Monco administration trying to figure out the start and stop times for their school with 5 sending schools with all different start and stop times. So it's already complicated there. If we throw another wrench into it, I think we're going to have to be a little flexible somewhere, but we will be, as I said, because we're just not going to compromise that program.
Okay, no other hands are raised at this time. Oh, well, welcome Heather. Heather, go ahead and unmute.
Hi, just a couple things. First of all, I'm totally in support of starting later. I've had 3 kids who've started early now for multiple years. And to, people who say they're concerned about practices and extracurricular activities being shortened at the end of the day, I guess I would just point to, a lot of the private schools start later and they have, successful sports teams and musicals and everything. So I don't think there'd be that much of an impact. The kids with their circadian rhythms, they definitely need to sleep in later. And the other thing too, I would say is the idea that if the high school and middle school start later, that would mean that the elementary school would have to start earlier. I don't think that's necessarily needs to be. I think that I've been driving the kids to school in the morning so they could get that extra half an hour of sleep in since 2012 now. And over the 10 years, I've noticed most of the buses are empty in the morning because, the kids need the extra sleep. Even some of the elementary school buses are empty. So perhaps the district could look into, designing a more efficient bus system, whether it's an app so people can say, yeah, I need a ride to school today, or no, I don't. But I just think there's creative ways we could take a look at using the bus system better so that, everybody can get a start time that works for them. Thanks.
Thank you, Heather.
Welcome Shannon to talk. Go ahead, Shannon, you can unmute.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to piggyback off of what Heather just said. Next year, I will have a 6th grader and a 3rd grader. So I'll have one at the elementary and one at the middle. And I just following what she said, I'm concerned. I'm all for a later start time. I think it's fantastic, but I would be concerned that we would rob Peter to pay Paul. Really, I don't think that it's a wonderful idea to start the littles, the youngest, kids that we have earlier, because then that sort of defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do for the older kids. And so I would just encourage you to tread lightly in that area.
Thank you, Shannon.
Tim, you can unmute. Welcome, Tim.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm also in support of the later start time. And I just want to make a comment that looking at the list of pros and cons and the list of pros seems to or benefit the students, whereas the list of cons is really just a lot of logistical challenges that we need to overcome. And I think if our goal is to do what is best for the student, which kind of basically all the item listed in the pro side, that I think we can find a way to solve the other logistical problem that we may have.
Thank you, Tim.
That's all. I just want to think that if our goal is to do what is best for the student, that we should do what we can to kind of like overcome the other challenges that we have, like with the bus and the other issues. But thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Well, welcome, Mike. Go ahead, Mike, you can unmute.
Yeah, I guess the part that I don't get, and maybe because my oldest is a freshman in high school, is it seems to me that delaying school start results in delaying school finish, which results in delaying the extracurricular activities, which results in delaying getting to start to work on your homework, which then results in delaying going to bed. So it almost seemed, I'm not convinced, and I haven't seen the studies, that you don't gain anything here.
Thank you, Mike. You did kind of put your finger on one of the most common, not objections, but hesitations, which is to say that just everything just goes a little bit later. I think you might find in that research the acknowledgement of the adolescent's circadian rhythm and kind of like when they sleep best and when they're most awake. But yeah, fair point. Something we'll have to look into and consider are we really increasing sleep or just pushing everything later?
Okay.
Before we, we have, I can say we have about 5 more minutes tonight to have some more comments. And again, this is not the end of the conversation, it's just the end of the evening, but we do have 5 more minutes. So Dr. Dewan.
Yeah, the Wissahickon High School Home and School Association. Go ahead, you can unmute.
Sorry about that. That's my Zoom title. I was just curious if this would affect the ELT or the extended learning times in the high school. If that program would still be able to be offered to students, or would this be discontinued because of teachers would not be able to stay longer during the day?
You raise a good point. Any of these changes will have to be done in conjunction and in communication with the local union. This happens everywhere because, of course, their workday might be affected. Dr. Blair, I'll let you answer the ELT part. I don't see why it would be, though. Can you think of a reason?
No, I mean, we would have to work with, I don't know if we would have less staff interested in staying. So right now, 2 days of the week, they stay until about 4:30. So it's like 2 hours past the end of the day, and then one time they stay like 2.5 hours. So it's possible that we would have less staff interested in, I mean, it's a paid position. It's outside of their contractual day anyway, but it could be a staffing challenge, but I don't have that information yet.
That looks like our last hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was giving, I scared everyone else off with my 5-minute warning, so I apologize for that. So, okay, well, I would just like to say to everyone who joined us and either contributed or just listened, there's going to be lots more opportunity to get involved, to contribute. If you think of something that you didn't tonight and want to be sure to share it with us, please get to that website, the web page. We will communicate that out again. We'll communicate out the next of these community conversations, and we'll get to work on creating a Q&A and creating that steering committee we talked about. So that will probably be the next communication on this topic you hear, is that call for volunteers and how to express interest in that. So other than that, anybody else on the panel here have thoughts? Or, well, I'd like to thank the fellow panelists for your time. Thank everybody for joining us, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. Good night.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.